Hey everybody, my name is Eric Schmuter and welcome to today's video on how to 50-50 on ramps and mini ramps. So, how to 50-50 on a mini ramp, it's actually really easy. Normally what I do on a 50-50 when I'm approaching a ramp or a mini ramp is that I kind of move my shoulders along the way with my feet, and so I distribute the weight onto the heel part of my feet, not the front one. And once I get locked into that 50-50 on that coping or the top of the ramp, if it doesn't have any coping, I kind of move my back feet a little bit forward or completely forward until one wheel is only touching that top of the ramp or the coping. That's only for the back wheel. The front wheel, I essentially just leave it fully locked in. And the reason I do this is because when you're going to transition back into the drop-in with the 50-50, you want a smooth transition. Now, what happens if you leave both both of the wheels tied up on the coping and you don't put the back wheel or the foot that's on the back wheel slightly forward or completely forward, is that when you do that transition, since it's completely on the coping, the whole truck is gonna get stuck on that transition, and your skateboard is gonna wobble, and you'll either end up hitting the floor or falling off or just bailing out, and you don't want to do that. So how do you start 50-50? So generally what I do start with 50-50s is I get on top of the coping like I'm doing a drop-in, and instead of just normal dropping, I do 50-50 drop-in, which is easier to learn how to get out the 50-50 into the drop-in, which is essentially necessary. Once I get that done on the mini ramp, I start approaching the ramp from down to the top, like you would normally do in a quarter pipe, a bowl, or any other ramp. And so they're really not that hard. When you're starting, of course, they're kind of complicated, but what I would suggest is start with speed. Don't start slow, because when you start slow, you won't necessarily get the top of the coping. Or if you hit the coping, some people just carve the coping, and you don't really want to carve the coping. You might want to start doing that and get a little bit of hang of it, but essentially, you want to get on top of the coping so you have more space to actually do a stall and actually do a grind. Now with a stall is basically just approaching the coping or the ramp forward. You don't add any narrow direction or bented direction. You just basically add a straight direction. You go straight into the obstacle. And once you go straight into the obstacle, you just kind of stall there. You hang there, right? You just stay there. You don't do anything. You can just stay there for even a minute. I'm exaggerating that part, but the essential part is the more you stay on it, like let's say 5 seconds on the coping, the more control you have over the trick. Some people just do the trick and immediately as they touch the coping they get out. Sometimes you can get out, and sometimes you need to get out because some instances you don't have that control over the board, over the deck, and sometimes you don't have that much speed. So what you end up doing is just touching the coping, like tapping it and just hopping back right into it, which is also a 50-50 or carve. But you want to approach it like that. You want to first get on top of the coping with the skateboard like a normal drop in, but you want to drop in 50-50 to drop in. You want to do that, and what you're going to do is, if you're regular like me, you're going to get the back foot and just move it forward until there's only one wheel hanging off and the other one touching the coping, and then you want to move front ways or like a little backside and drop in, right? Not a complete backside because you're basically just pivoting. You want to pivot, right? Like a backside, right? You want to pivot, and then just drop in immediately. And so the other approach is once you learn how to drop in with the 50-50, you want to learn how to get up the ramp. And this is a lot of problems for a lot of people because when they're trying to do this, they either go slow or they either don't even reach the top. So you want to go with speed. You want to get used to that ramp. Remember, you got to get used to that ramp. And some people end up getting over the ramp too much, and that's totally fine. That's totally perfect because that's what you want essentially, to get over the ramp on top of the ramp. Some people miss the coping completely and they land on top of the flat area of the ramp, and that's fine because you want to get control over how much speed you need and use. So once you learn how to do that and get on top of the coping, comes the precision of your body. Generally, when I do this trick, I bend my knees a little bit. Right, I bend my knees. I put the weight a little bit more on the heels because if I put them more on front, if by mistake my two front wheels are hanging off the coping and I'm leaning forward, I'm just gonna slide forward and I may end up falling off or hitting the ground. So you want to bend your knees always, especially if you're dropping in from higher ramps, more steeper ramps, and more taller ramps, which is more essentially like both um more vertical. You want to bend your knees. I would recommend 8.50 if you're dropping in from 4 feet ramps, 5 feet ramps. 8.50 deck. Really just remember, use the gear, the helmet, the elbow pads, the knee pads, maybe some high top shoes if you're getting hit in the ankles a lot. I would recommend those. Um, the other ones are I don't know what they're called, but protectors for the hands. You basically have them. They protect your wrists and your arm, not completely arm, but the hand, and you can slide off. I would also recommend those ones. Some people don't like them. Sometimes they're necessary, but yeah, those ones, and that's basically it. Just keep practicing the trick. For me, it took me some months to get it down, but if you practice this trick constantly, each day, each week, whenever you have the free time, whenever you're at the skate park, whenever you have a ramp, if you have a ramp at your house or at a friend's house or at the skate park, try this trick, get used to it, get on top of the coping, bend your knees, and just go with it. And if you fall, you have those knee protectors that you basically just slide off, and it's not that hard of impact. So yeah, that's basically it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have any other suggestions, leave them in the comments. Any questions, didn't understand something, or having trouble with the trick itself, leave the comments in this video. I'll try to respond to them, and I will respond to them. So yeah, anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.
Also, another thing, if you're locked in like this with the 50-50, you don't want to pivot on that side completely like that, because if you do, it will just wobble. See how kind of like this transition right there hangs off, because it's entirely, the truck, the back foot is entirely stuck there. So you want to lean that back foot right on that one wheel, so when you pivot, right, the front one doesn't matter. Preferably the front one can go up all the way stuck, but the back one should be hanging off one wheel. Because if you do not hang it off one wheel when you do the pivot, it will get stuck. But if you hang it off one wheel, it won't get stuck, and it will be much more smoother transition when doing it. On smaller ramps, it doesn't matter that much, but more steeper ramps and bigger ones, it matters more. If you just right there decide to do that, it gets stuck on your truck and it will wobble, and you could probably fall, probably not if you have a good balance, but most of the time you're going to fall.